I'm glad that we've got Natalia talking about the artist side of it, but we've got Susan Howell joining us talking about the financial side of it. And you have an amazing story that your background was predominantly in a male world. I'm going to let you share that story. And she is now offering workshops for women and creating new workshops for women who are doing this as a single household now. So I'm excited to get into this. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much. And just like Natalia, I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity on International Women's Day. I'm full of gratitude to be here today and talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, empowering everyone, but in particular, women around money matters.
And I was telling Susan over the weekend how many years it has eluded me to try to find someone to come forward and talk about finances, because every woman that we meet has compliance issues as investment. And because you do it a little bit differently, you are not telling anyone to buy, sell, trade. Mm-hmm. This is more for educational purposes. She was more than happy to come and share.
Yes, that's true. I tell people I'm not a financial planner, I'm not an attorney or an accountant, and I'm definitely not going to invest your money. What I'm going to help you do is work on that money story that's playing in your head that might not be serving you, and I'm also going to get you on point with your money, because when we can get our money situation under control so that money works for us, it gets rid of that stress, the fear, the worry, what you were talking about of living paycheck to paycheck, and then it creates this space, opportunity, and freedom, and then you can start to follow your passion, your purpose, because money and passion and purpose do not need to be mutually exclusive.
Now, how did you get into where you are in the field? You have a background, a money story of growing up.
I do, and I wanted to thank Natalia for bringing up the stories, because I think the stories behind all of us are so important and so telling. And I grew up in a household where, we did not have money. We were poor. We lived in a pretty dilapidated duplex that was given to my mother by her parents, or half of it was given to my mother. And my father was the only one that worked. My mother did not work. She did not drive. Very domineering father. Issue with alcohol. Spent a lot of money on alcohol. And what I remember as a child is my father coming home on Fridays and literally counting out, back then everything was cash, counting out bills to my mother and basically telling her, make it last. And it was her duty to, buy the food, pay the bills. I can remember my mom literally walking to Sears to hand pay our electric bill. Or I think it was electric bill, but it was basically she had no power because she had no money of her own and was totally dependent on my father. And I vowed, I don't know, maybe 10, 11, 12, that it's never going to be me, and I'm going to rewrite my story. And I rewrote my story.
And then going forward, you really rewrote your story.
I did.
And you had a career in finance, somewhat, I guess, and money.
Yes, I did. I started, my first job was a paralegal with the state attorney's office, which is where I met my now ex-husband. But then I quickly started working for the IRS, and I was a tax collector. So I learned a lot about money and what happens when you don't pay your taxes, when you don't get your money under control. And it doesn't always matter whether you have a lot of money or a little money. Money situations can get out of control quickly. And then I left the civil side of the IRS, and I became a special agent for the IRS for 2 years, and then I transferred to the Department of Justice, Office of the Inspector General, as a special agent, and then a senior special agent. I worked there for 20 years in a, probably 80-20, 85-15 dominated male field, and worked a lot of financial crime cases, and again saw how money can really complicate life, and it infuses everything, including crimes.
Where were you working these jobs, in New York?
No, my whole career was here in Miami.
Oh, in Miami.
Yeah.
So you had a very colorful career. You saw a lot.
Yes.
Right? If we're talking 80s, 90s.
Yes.
Miami was the hub of Miami Vice era, is all I can say.
Yeah, I became a special agent in 1995, and I worked narcotics. I was on loan to the DEA from, 1999, when I was pregnant. My son Will had a lot of stories happening when I was pregnant with him. From 99 to maybe for 3.5, 4 years, I was working with the DEA, and literally life was like an episode of Miami Vice on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was cocaine. Those were the cocaine cowboy days, wasn't it?
Well, it was after the cocaine cowboy days, but cocaine is always prevalent in Miami. But it was also heroin and methamphetamines were really big. And we worked a lot of pill cases. That took me to, Spain. I went to Haiti on cases. And it was a exciting career and a dangerous career.
So how do you think that background led you to now empowering women to help them set budgets, change the mindset from scarcity to abundance? And do you really think that mindset makes a difference?
Yeah. One, I'm going to say, and I'll go into it a little bit more, but the mindset absolutely makes a difference, because what we tell ourselves, what we think about money is how money is going to show up in our life. If we say, I'm broke, I'm always going to be broke, I never get ahead of myself, I live paycheck to paycheck, self-fulfilling prophecy, because it starts here. It always starts here. And so I work on money mindset as probably one of the first things I do with my clients. I teach workshops and I present, I do lunch and learns, but I also have one-on-one clients, and I do a lot of one-on-one money coaching, and we work on money mindset right from the beginning. But I think, I had the great opportunity to have a very secured job in the federal government that paid well. Agents, because our job was dangerous, we got paid well on the federal government level. And I started investing when I was 23 years old, and that changed the course of my life monetarily. And every time I got a raise, I'd take a chunk of that raise and I'd put it to investments, and it became so automatic. I didn't even know what it was like to live on that extra money, because I went straight to investments. And I retired at 50 and was able to now create MoneyMaestra, live my dream, and be financially secure and financially free.
You talk about budgets, and I have to tell you, for me, I must have a major money story in my childhood that I don't even know what it is, but clearly the thought of a budget to me makes me sick to my stomach, because maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. And I remember when I was first married at 22, the accountant would say to me, and it was before Quicken, and I would write down our expenses and turn in our taxes. Rent, $600. I mean, my taxes were about this big. I had tax, electric, water. I didn't even have water because it was a rental. And even that made me sick. And he'd say, all right, you need to budget for your car, for your this. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, what that even looks like. What if there's not enough money, but I still want to do that? He says, then you don't. I said, then I'm not going to make a budget. Honest to goodness. And I don't think I've made a budget to this day, because what if I can't keep it? And you're laughing.
I am laughing because
what if you want to go out for dinner and you don't have the money? Well, that would be what a credit card was for, which is why we all get in trouble on credit cards. She's laughing. Is that wrong?
I'm not.
Because there's so many people. I can't even say women. I would venture to say there are a lot of men like me
yes,
also.
There are. There are. And so
she's still laughing.
I'm not laughing.
So is my mother and father probably right now.
I'm laughing with you because I get this all the time. Like, I don't want to budget because it's boring. I'm not good at math. If I budget, then I'm really going to know. And I go, wait, stop there. That's the key. If you budget, you're really going to know. And what I tell people is your situation is your situation, whether you choose to have eyes wide open or whether you choose to put your head in the sand about it, but it's still going to be there. And the problem is if you don't look at it and you don't budget, then then the chaos starts to set in. And what I try to do is I tell people we're going to start where you are right now as you are. I have my clients fill out a detailed financial form, and I say, I want to know everything. I don't, we sign a confidentiality agreement. I don't want you to hide anything from me because I have to know where you are, and don't be ashamed. And I think what happens is a lot of people have shame
Susan, just bring
attached to
your mic
money
closer.
issues.
Bring your mic closer.
Have shame attached to money issues, and there shouldn't be any shame because wherever we are is where we are. But a budget, if you don't know what's coming in and what's going out and you're not tracking it, there's no way you can keep control of your money no matter how much money you make, whether you make a little or a lot. And the thing is, and I tell people this, there's magic in a budget. And I just had a client last night that said to me, Susan, I'm finally getting it. It's a process. And I told her, you're not going to get it immediately. But when you do the budget and you work the budget and we work together, ultimately it's going to click. And then what it does is it creates not only more money in your life, it lets you direct where you want your money to go. Do you want to save for a house? Do you want to save for retirement? And it creates space and freedom. 100%.
But what if you want to go out Saturday night with your friends?
Okay.
And then you got to pay for your kids'
Then you budget it.
textbooks.
Then
you put it in your budget.
Yeah, you budget it. So what I do is I have an entertainment expense. I literally line item all my expenses. And so say I really want to go to an event, but it's not necessarily in my budget. If I know where all my money is allocated, then I can say, you know what? Maybe I won't be so generous with the groceries, because sometimes I go over the top on groceries. So I'll take a little money out of my grocery budget and I'll throw it in my going out budget, and I'm still in balance. But you have to look at it, because if you don't look at the money, ultimately it's going to come to debt. Or, and I tell people, all my clients, you have to get really comfortable with something called paying yourself first, which means before I go out, before I buy the shoes, before I take the trip I can't afford, I'm going to put some money away for me in an emergency fund, in an investment fund, and in a retirement fund. And I tell people, I don't care if it's $25, but you've got to get into the mode of paying yourself first. It is key to ultimate financial security and financial freedom.
And then I think about the conversations you have to have with your partner, your
That's
spouse,
what I
your
was gonna bring
significant
up.
other.
That changes the
And I
equation.
always say that most fighting, I think,
Yeah.
is over money and sex.
In that order.
100%.
Or sex and money, because you're
No,
not going
not
to
in
have
that
sex. If
order.
you're in debt, you do not want to have sex. Sorry. Maybe it's just an over 50 thing. I say what I think. But right, when you're younger, you don't think of those two things. But as you get older in your relationship, your responsibilities grow. Your children, your grandchildren,
Yes.
college. The pressure of not having the money trickles into everything. You don't feel loving or sexy. There's resentment both ways. The conversation, did you get paid? Why is your check less? Did you get paid? Why are you laid off? All of these stresses add to the change in the money story, yes?
100%. And one of the things that I think is the best thing, and I also counsel couples, and it's amazing because in the end they tell me, like, you're like our therapist, Susan, because it's so much is tied around money, and I'll agree with you, money and sex, and they are linked. And what happens is, money becomes one of the things I teach is money's not positive, money's not negative, it's a neutral, but we put the charge behind it, and we really do. And what happens is, people get these like gut clenching feelings when they want to talk to their spouse or their kids or their family about money, and it's because for so long, especially as women, we've been taught money's taboo, it's not polite to talk about money, we never talk about money. And this is what I say: let's talk about money. Ladies, everyone, husbands, wives, bring it to the table. And it doesn't have to be, I talk about money with everybody in my life, and I'm really comfortable with it, even though obviously this is what I do for a business. But it's one of the things I teach my clients. It's one of the things, right now I have a workshop, Women, Money, and Relationships, and one of the key things we're working on is how do I communicate about money with the people in my life? And I have tips. One, be wholehearted. Don't bring your issues to the table. Don't bring your judgment to the table. Don't bring your shame to the table. Meet each other wholehearted. Don't lie. Don't hide things. Be honest. And I'll give a third tip. It's deeper than this, but 3 tips. And the third one would be listen wholeheartedly. Listen actively. Don't try to answer the question before your partner finishes saying what they say, and leave the judgment aside. And, there's more to it, but even if you just stick with being wholehearted, being honest, having no ulterior motives, and actively listen, you can accomplish so much.
Well, what if situations change? And with COVID, I think this is the perfect conversation to have. Your spouse may not be making the money that they used to make. Where they used to pay for ABC, they can only pay for A. But you used to pay for B and C.
Right.
I don't want this situation to change, but financially it has to. How do we have these sincere money conversations that people are now going through?
Well, I think for me, one of the things, it all starts with love. If you love the person you're talking to, whatever the situation is, a husband, wife, a partner, kids, it starts with you're in this relationship because there's a basis of love and wanting to be together, so you work together as a team. And I think there's so much to be said for teamwork. And this whole notion, I'm a fiercely independent woman, so this whole notion for me, watching it in my household growing up where the woman is dependent on the man, it's not something that the way I live my life, but even in I don't even like to say traditional because I don't think that's traditional anymore, but even in that sort of relationship where maybe the man is making more money or the husband is, the woman is at home raising the kids. That's a job. That's a job. But if, say, the man does not make enough money to sustain the household, then maybe the woman needs to get a side hustle. Maybe they have to work together as a team to find a way. I think it's a bad formula to say all the money responsible falls on one partner, whether it's the woman or the man. I think there has to be a meeting of minds and sometimes a meeting of pocketbooks. And if you talk about budgeting as a couple, then it becomes a team effort. And I highly advise couples to budget together. It doesn't matter if you want to have two separate accounts and one joint house account, or you want to put everything in one account, but talk about it together, budget together, and be on the same page and be willing to make, you've got to be flexible. You have to be flexible in relationships.
I got a question. To me, and they'll tell you, marriage is a business. It doesn't start out that way because everybody's like, oh, I love you. Oh, you walk on water, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And if you can't talk money, then don't get married. That's all I say. If you can't do business with the person that you're going to do for the next 60 years, how long your parents been married? Mine were married 66 years, 67 years.
56 years is going to be.
67. And my father said to me, I told your mother, we're going to do it one of two ways. You're going to do it your way or we're going to do it my way. And that's how his translation was. If you can't talk business with the person you're going to marry, this ain't for you. You could be friends, you could go hang, you could do whatever, but marriage is expensive.
Yep.
Kids are very expensive. And then, you set that budget up. You know what used to frustrate me? I had some money on the side. And Freddie's going dancing tonight because I had a little budget. And then the car breaks down, man. And you got to go. You got to have your wheels, right? So all of a sudden, you have to make adaptation. You have to make adjustments. It's like anything else in life. And if you can't talk finances with the person you're going to be married to or are married to, you better call her in a heartbeat. Because that is the secret, especially under the pressures we are under today.
These conversations keep going. I want to give out your website before we go to commercial break.
Okay, it's MoneyMaestra, and that's teacher in Spanish, MoneyMaestra.com.
Tú eres Latina.
I am not Latina, but yo hablo español. Y vivía en Miami muchos años.
MoneyMaestra came from where?
And MoneyMaestra, I liked the alliteration, and I wanted to celebrate Miami. And I love that maestra is like a female
Teacher.
maestro. So that's how I got MoneyMaestra.
There's a lot.
She's earned the name Missy. In Puerto Rico, we used to call teachers, Spanish teachers, females, Missy.
A whole lot of information, and there's so much more to do. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come